15 legends whose lives were cut short after a procedure. Things went wrong. Imagine the very table meant for healing, turning into the final chapter for icons who seemed invincible. Tonight we explore 15 painful stories where stars sought medical help but never returned home. Some outcomes were tied to known medical mishaps. Others prove how basic care turns fatal when silent health issues surface. Watch until the end because one specific account will shift your view on safety and trust. For those seeking the actual truth, without any rumors, join the Black Excellence list right now. Donda West. Most people knew her as the mother of Kanye West. In reality, she was a brilliant scholar with a doctorate degree, a trusted mentor, and the woman Kanye called his greatest support. Her loss still hurts because it was not from old age or a random accident. It happened after elective beauty surgeries that many think are totally safe. Here is what the official medical records actually show. On November 9, 2007, Donda had work done involving fat removal and chest reduction, plus extra. Noting a stomach-tightening procedure was also part of the session. She went home that day, but by November 10, 2007, she passed at 58. Here is the part that hits the hardest. Investigators later discovered she suffered from heart issues, and that several post-op problems combined, so no single mistake was blamed. Like a lone error, but a lethal mix of risks after the surgery. Autopsy details showed 50 to 70% clogged arteries and lung inflammation right after the work. When we call a surgery elective, do we trick ourselves into thinking the danger is optional too? She became a symbol for medical responsibility, without pointing fingers at anyone. News outlets began looking into the surgeon background, finding he lacked the official board certification for that specialty. Though state regulations in California actually to allow doctors to do these jobs even without those specific credentials. Probes were launched as people got incredibly angry. Still, nothing brings her back. A mother is gone and her kin are broken forever. Regarding stories of surgical errors, what happened to Donda is a wake-up call. Disaster does not always strike during the operation. Everything might seem perfect on the chart. Until the body faces issues, it simply cannot survive. Stella Obasanjo. She led Nigeria as the First Lady when the nation was a global powerhouse, graceful, influential, and always in the public eye, which is why her passing is so haunting. It was not from violence or a visible disease. She died following a chosen beauty treatment in another country. A move that seemed standard until things took a dark turn. News reports back then suggested Stella took a trip to Marbella, Spain, seeking a quick aesthetic upgrade at a high-end clinic. She was rushed to intensive care and flatlined on October 23, 2005. Aged 59. Back home in Nigeria, the vibe was not just sadness. It was total shock. People could not grasp how a First Lady could pass from a purely elective beauty choice. Since she was such a big name, the rumor mill started spinning immediately. What really went down in that room? And who is going to answer for it? If wealth and high-level connections cannot protect you from a routine op, is anyone truly safe? Years later, the court case painted a much grimmer picture. By 2009, reports confirmed a Spanish surgeon was convicted of total negligence. Records detailed how a tool used during the procedure sliced the gut and liver of the patient. Additionally, the surgeon served a year and lost his medical credentials. He also paid out major settlements as part of the legal resolution. This was a textbook instance of a voluntary procedure turning into a fatal nightmare. The situation sparked massive investigations and a high-profile legal showdown. This tragedy is not just about a beauty journey gone wrong. It proves the operating table does not care about your status or power. It only cares about biological limits and the physical reality of the human body. This is what happens when things spiral out of control in the theater. Then there is the story of John Singleton. John flipped the script in Hollywood with real stories, but his final days revealed a different reality. Even a legendary life can hinge on a single sudden health crisis. Sometimes, even the best medical team cannot reverse what the body has already decided. Singleton was just 51. When news broke, he had suffered a major stroke on April 17. In 2019, he was fighting for his life in the ICU. In the following days, the updates became increasingly heavy for his family and fans. He fell into a coma while his family had to make calls no one ever wants to make. Around April 28 or 29, 2019, things took a turn. His loved ones made the brutal call to stop life support at Cedars-Sinai. Reports highlighted that he had been struggling with high blood pressure for a while. High blood pressure is the silent killer that often goes unnoticed. This added a sobering context to the massive stroke he suffered. Sometimes the real danger is not the knife. It is the hidden condition ticking inside. When doctors say they did everything, we realize how much is truly out of our hands. This is where his path aligns with our story without relying on fake rumors. Some clickbait sites try to claim his death was a botched surgery, but the actual timeline points to a stroke and the final goodbye of the family. It was not a failed medical operation, but a sudden health emergency. The heartbreak is still the same for those who respected his work. The hospital becomes the last stand, and sometimes there is no winning that battle. His legacy, Boys in the Hood and the barriers he broke, remains massive, but his ending leaves a quiet, heavy lesson that hits home for everyone. Modern medicine is a lifeline, but it cannot always rewrite the final chapter of someone. This is especially true when the crisis hits fast and the damage is already done. Patrice O'Neill. Patrice did not pass away because a simple checkup went south. Truth be told, the actual disaster is far grimmer and backed by facts. At 41, he was molding his craft into a raw, unique comedic force. He possessed that rare wit to trigger laughter while making his audience squirm. Autumn 2011 arrived, bringing a physical collapse that was no laughing matter. Records show that on the morning of October 19, 2011, Patrice confessed to his partner, Fonda, that his lower body had gone numb. Emergency responders sped him to one clinic before moving him to Englewood Hospital. Surgeons scrambled to clear a cerebral blockage triggered by a massive stroke. It turned into that instant family horror story, a total loss of voice and mobility. Every word was traded for blinking eyes, until even those lights dimmed. Society might chuckle at the classic heavy-set comedian tropes, yet we often overlook the ticking biological clocks within until time runs out. By November 29, 2011, Patrice succumbed to post-stroke complications. Final assessments zeroed in on his ongoing battle with type 2 diabetes. This long-term struggle drastically heightened the odds of a fatal vascular disaster. That procedure was not some optional choice gone sideways. It was a desperate life-saving attempt. Simply put, surgery was not his downfall. It was the final prayer to save his life. That specific realization is what makes this loss particularly crushing. His passing highlights how a silent illness flips a routine morning into critical care. While comedians wept for a legend, the underlying message is much more subtle. Often, the deadliest surgery is the sudden one required only after the internal damage is irreversible. Enter Sean Rooks. Standing 6'10", the ex-NBA star looked invincible as he moved into professional coaching roles. He seemed like the perfect veteran to guide young athletes for decades to come. This explains why his exit felt brutal. It perfectly illustrates how quickly disaster strikes when our vitals become the primary conflict zone. On June 7, 2016, Rooks passed away in Philly at 46, just after interviewing for a major coaching gig. This opportunity was supposed to launch a fresh phase of his professional life. Official news outlets identified the culprit as heart disease, causing a sudden cardiac arrest. This specific ailment often lingers in the shadows for many seasons, then lunges without fanfare or a second chance. That lack of warning is hard to swallow. Catastrophes do not always give you months of symptoms or a steady hospital watch. It is often the reverse. A person appears healthy and plans their tomorrow. Then their biological light switch just flips. While this footage focuses on hospital procedures and surgical complications, Rooks' tragedy resonates because it highlights the sheer terror of vital organs failing under pressure. Even the most meticulous medical plans and recovery steps become meaningless if a total body collapse occurs. We often feel invincible simply because we keep a packed schedule, stay energetic, and look toward the future. This nagging question defines his tale, keeping it from becoming sensationalized gossip. There is no need for fake hospital drama to make this narrative compelling. The raw impact is inherent. He was not some veteran quietly drifting away from the spotlight. He was constantly on the move, expanding his network and mentoring the next generation. Then, within mere hours, the journey ended. Sean Rooks serves as a stark reminder: cardiac failure ignores status, physical stature, grit, or past athletic dominance. It often lurks within a standard routine until it suddenly strikes. When it does, that medical safety net we rely on might not be there in time. Bernie Mac possessed a rare talent for turning his own suffering into comedy gold. Under the spotlight, he could transform life's hardships into roaring laughter. Behind the scenes, He was fighting a quiet war that made every health scare far more lethal. For years, Mac dealt with sarcoidosis, a chronic condition that triggers inflammation in the lungs. Even when doctors claimed the illness was dormant, his physical state was precarious. His state was far more dangerous than people ever suspected. During the peak of summer in 2008, that hidden fragility met an unexpected crisis. That crisis turned into a fatal blow. Official reports confirmed he was admitted to hospital. He passed on August 9, 2008, at 50 from pneumonia-related issues. His inner circle and global fanbase were blindsided by the lack of warning, witnessing a rapid freefall where "he will pull through" was suddenly replaced by silence. How many of us gamble on the idea that we can prioritize our health tomorrow? We often find that tomorrow never arrives. Mac's narrative is powerful for this reason. It demonstrates how fast the body can fail when chronic illness meets a secondary infection. Later accounts detailed his grueling stay in intensive care, struggling against aggressive pneumonia. He struggled before his heart finally gave out, a conclusion that feels particularly tragic. His whole livelihood was dependent on his breath control and that legendary voice. Medical experts later explained why pneumonia is such a threat when defenses are down. They explained how a common infection can escalate into a total catastrophe. While some early rumors suggested his passing followed a surgery, the facts point elsewhere. Facts point toward respiratory complications rather than a verified surgical mishap. That accuracy actually adds more weight to his story. The real shock is not found in a dramatic operating room scene. It is the terrifying speed at which a health crisis can dismantle a life. It affects a life that looked perfectly healthy from the outside. Yolanda King carried the weight of a legendary legacy, but the most heartbreaking part of her life is not about her public activism. It is the quiet, rapid way her health failed, leaving no room for intervention. On May 15, 2007, she collapsed in Santa Monica. She passed away at 51. Early news cycles indicated the family was searching for answers. Relatives suspected a cardiac event was to blame for her sudden passing. This proves that some of the most lethal conditions do not give you a countdown. This distinction is crucial when analyzing medical tragedies because her story is clouded. Yolanda's story is often clouded online by details that are not backed by official records. Reports from immediately after the tragedy pointed to a heart condition. They pointed to a heart condition rather than any confirmed surgical error. Even later, medical reviews attribute her death to long-standing cardiovascular issues. Reports from immediately after the tragedy pointed to a heart condition. The tragedy pointed to a heart condition rather than any confirmed surgical error. Even later, medical reviews attribute her death to long-standing cardiovascular issues. This tragedy fits your narrative like a glove. Someone can look fine while their health is actually crumbling. And when that heart finally stops, no emergency room can outrun the inevitable. We ignore the fatigue and the gasping for air, dodging doctors just to keep our busy lives moving. Her story sticks because it stays brutally honest. Yolanda wasn't just another statistic in a file. She felt the heavy pressure to always stay strong. The world only knew her through a sudden shock. That realization is a heavy blow for anyone watching. Medicine is powerful, yet it has its breaking points, especially when hidden heart risks strike without warning. Florence Griffith Joyner. Florence Griffith Joyner. Flojo seemed bulletproof, which makes her loss feel surreal. On September 21, 1998, she died at 38. The rumors were absolutely brutal, but the official autopsy drew a definitive line. Experts concluded that she suffocated in her sleep, following a major seizure event caused by a rare brain condition called cavernous hemangioma. This fact is vital for your story because a surgical error wasn't what took her life. The reality is actually much more terrifying. She had lived with these seizures for years. A private battle that ended in the quiet of night. If the world's most elite athlete is this fragile, what about us? Then came the cruel attempt to rewrite her legacy. Media reports at the time hoped the autopsy would stop the rumors, proving that no performance drugs were found anywhere in her system when she passed. Years later, we still have to defend the truth. Gossip always travels faster than medical facts. Her story hurts because it lacks a tidy ending. There was no public drama, just a lonely crisis. It serves as a dark warning for everyone. Sometimes the killer isn't a surgeon making a mistake. It is the chilling reality that biology can simply fail. Phyllis Heman. Her death is often framed as a surgery disaster, but the actual truth is far more heartbreaking. She played the glamorous star on the outside, while she was secretly fighting a war within. Various accounts confirm her 80s diagnosis of bipolarity and clinical gloom. This led her to seek solace in substances. That June 30th, 1995. They discovered Phyllis unresponsive in her Manhattan home. She was found following a lethal dose and passed that afternoon. It was mere moments before her big show at the Apollo. It is a chilling footnote. The curtain was about to rise. The stage was set, but she had already slipped away. Local news detailed a potential suicide probe, citing a stash of meds and a final letter inside. That famous, heartbreaking sentence from her parting words was eventually aired by BET. "I am utterly drained." It makes you wonder, how many star-studded facades are just agony dressed up until the breaking point? If you are covering botched procedures, approach Phyllis' story with extreme caution. Steer clear of rumors saying she died from some secret plastic surgery gone wrong. The facts are clear. The dates, her medical struggles, and that final overdose. Her last moments did not happen under a surgeon's knife, but in that lonely void. It was a void where the spotlight never hits. Stick to the truth to stay credible. Her downfall was not due to a slip of the blade. It was a life defined by singing sweet melodies for the masses. While her own inner spark was fading fast, Dave Duerson seemed unbreakable. He was a titan with a pair of championship rings. He was a legendary safety known for his punishing hits on the field. Duerson carried the grit of a man who conquered the league's bloodiest days. Yet, the real nightmare began when the crowds went home. There were years of mysterious health issues that no replay could capture. He was spiraling, hunting for any way to stop the hurting. Accounts from that period mentioned crippling migraines and radical personality shifts. There was a mental collapse. His loved ones felt powerless to stop. Then, on February 17th, 2011, Duerson was found. He was in Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. Having taken his own life, he died with a single shot to the heart. His calculated final decision is what makes this so haunting for a medical expose. He left instructions to give his brain to science. He was purposely aiming for his chest to keep his mind intact for future analysis. This is not just some tabloid drama. It is a cold, hard fact that transforms his passing into a warning. He felt his mind fracturing and needed the evidence to survive his own burial. When someone treats their own suicide like a laboratory sample, imagine the sheer agony. Imagine the pain he must have endured while breathing. After a few months, scientists validated Duerson's dark intuition. He suffered from CTE, a decaying brain condition caused by countless hits to the skull. Put simply, his last wish was a clinical confirmation, not just a gesture. It is a brutal cycle. Hidden trauma, causing issues that look like simple sadness or mood swings. While the world only notices when the damage is permanent, Duerson did not pass away in surgery. But his fate fits this narrative because it reveals the grim reality of medical oversight. When science hits a wall with a failing mind, people start searching for the truth in the only evidence remaining. What the body reveals post-mortem. Reggie White, the legendary Minister of Defense, a man built like an unbreakable fortress, yet his final struggle happened quietly at home on December 26, 2004. At 43, the real tragedy was not just losing a hero, it was the brutal suddenness. Rushed from his North Carolina house to the clinic, he was gone, leaving everyone blindsided without a farewell tour or any public warning signs. The verified medical reports offer a chillingly precise explanation. The local county medical experts eventually identified the culprit as a fatal heart rhythm failure likely driven by chronic lung and heart inflammation, a serious illness White had battled for many years. Autopsy findings also flagged sleep apnea as a tragic contributing factor, a silent killer that can pressure the heart for years before turning fatal when left unchecked. If a titan can fall while sleeping, what about our ignored symptoms? Just because they do not cause daily agony, Reggie's story is a true medical catastrophe, even without a surgical theater. Sometimes it is not a botched operation that ends everything. It is the body's quiet inability to mask hidden flaws until it finally breaks. These specific details are what make it so haunting. Heart flutters do not always give a warning, and disordered breathing feels manageable until the very moment it becomes lethal. After his passing, his family helped start a sleep health foundation, turning a massive loss into a way to save other families. Reggie White forces us to rethink our views on strength. No amount of fame can defeat a disease hiding in the shadows. Moses Malone seemed absolutely indestructible to his fans. Malone seemed absolutely indestructible to his fans. The chairman of the boards made absolute dominance look like a daily routine. That is why his death on September 13th, 2015, felt so freezing. Malone was found unresponsive in a Norfolk, Virginia hotel at 60. While visiting for a charity gala, there was no crowd or stadium lights, just an eerie silence, a locked door, and a legend who did not answer. Here is the factual data that grounds this story in reality. State examiners concluded Malone passed away from natural causes, specifically citing hypertensive and atherosclerotic heart disease as the cause. One report noted that Malone told a friend he had seen doctors for heart flutters just days earlier, meaning the sirens were sounding. But time was already running out. How many people ignore a racing heart and choose to wait, delaying the doctor until after the next busy work week? This narrative presents Moses as a classic case of medical fallout. Official accounts do not link his passing to some botched medical procedure. They point towards silent heart conditions that kill without any cinematic warning. That is precisely why his narrative fits this collection. It proves that while doctors can monitor us, the body can still give out when hidden issues peak. Moses Malone never collapsed mid-game or fell to an opponent. A much more common, yet chilling, enemy took him down. It is the type of cardiac threat lurking in plain sight, striking in a quiet space when no one is ready for farewells. Daryl Dawkins, famously known as Chocolate Thunder, was the powerhouse who smashed glass and forced the league to upgrade rim safety. That massive persona made his sudden passing feel even more jarring. On August 27, 2015, he died at 58 in Allentown. Multiple sources confirmed his family statement that a heart attack took him, while officials confirmed a post-mortem was necessary. When discussing these medical heartbreaks, facts matter most, especially since his name gets tied to sensational surgical rumors online. These rumors lack any real journalistic backing. We do know how fast everything changed for a guy who remained a vibrant, larger-than-life icon until the very day he vanished. Sports networks eventually linked his end to a scary trend of giant athletes. Dying too soon highlights the cardiac dangers that follow players after they retire. Seriously, how many people ignore their health because they feel okay, only waking up when it is too late? That chilling thought drives the entire Dawkins chapter. Faking surgical drama is not necessary to make this story feel real. The real horror is how cardiac illness develops in silence, then attacks before you can even try to fix it. News shifted from a pending examination to a heart failure diagnosis, leaving a sudden void without any closure. Dawkins did not go down during a match. He did not waste away. He was snatched by an everyday nightmare. A quick heart failure transformed a titan of strength into proof that even icons cannot outrun the invisible. Kim Porter naturally commanded every spotlight she stepped into. As a stunning model and actress, she was a powerhouse mom with a seemingly perfect existence. Yet, beneath the fame, she was secretly struggling with her health. It was that nagging illness we all ignore because the world keeps moving. A persistent hack, deep exhaustion, or a fever you hope vanishes overnight. Suddenly, the clock just ran out. On November 15th, 2018, she was found unconscious. She was at her Toluca Lake residence. Paramedics rushed in, but the fight was already over. They called it right there. She was only 47. It felt like a total blindside, since there was no warning or chance to say goodbye. Just a sudden void, where a vibrant life once stood. A few weeks later, the medical report painted a grimly clear picture. The LA County coroner ruled lobar pneumonia as the cause behind the passing of Kim Porter. They categorized the tragedy as a death by natural causes. It sounds routine until you realize how quickly pneumonia chokes the life out of a defenseless body. You are on your feet and managing life one afternoon. By the next morning, every breath is a struggle against a ticking clock. We often ignore a heavy cough or fever, assuming it will fade until it does not. That is the chilling reality of the Kim Porter tragedy. This was not some high-profile breakdown beneath the stage lights. It was a silent internal crisis that struck fast and took everything. This story serves as a sobering wake-up call for every viewer. Fatal conclusions often lack the loud warnings we would expect to hear. They hide in small symptoms we brush off until the system finally fails. Take the case of Earl Morrall. Morrall was the definition of a reliable leader on the field. He was the play caller you wanted when the game was at stake. He steered the 1972 Dolphins through their perfect run after Bob Grease went down. Yet his closing act did not take place on the gridiron. Instead, it was a quiet and agonizingly slow fading out. This forced his family to watch him slip away before he passed. News surfaced that he was battling Parkinson's as his physical condition deteriorated. Then, on April 25, 2014, he died. He passed away at 79 in the Fort Lauderdale home of his son. It was a heavy, low-key end, marked by that somber silence families know. The public narrative following his death seemed straightforward enough. He was a gridiron icon, a lingering sickness, and a sad farewell. People often blame age until a diagnosis changes the script. It robs rest, mobility, memory, and hope itself. Then, posthumously, a new chapter came to light, shifting the perspective on what he had been enduring for decades. In 2016, reports confirmed his brain showed stage 4 CTE. This was the highest severity possible. It was a discovery that could not fix the past, but it completely recontextualized his long journey to the end. Every hit and every season left hidden scars never captured on the highlights. This story captivates us because it is not just one single event. It is the grinding friction between a storied legacy and failing biology. A legend known for being cool under pressure finished his days in a quiet struggle. That struggle stayed hidden from the world until the truth emerged, transforming a sports goodbye into a much more chilling medical mystery. Following these tales, a nagging question lingers after a medical fatality. Is the surgery at fault, or the secret ailments lurking beneath the surface? Certain losses were the result of known medical issues. Some succumbed to lightning-fast ailments, while official investigations eventually reclassified several other tragic cases. Honestly, our daily patterns function as a mental safety net, never an absolute shield. What is your perspective? Are we scapegoating medical professionals too quickly, or are we simply ignoring bodily warning signs? Leave a comment. Join the Black Excellence list for more evidence-driven storytelling.